In a crowded world of honking horns and cubicle offices, nature can be heart-stopping. So think how lucky John Fielder is, perhaps Colorado's premier nature photographer. And you could say a place like this, Rocky Mountain National Park, is his office. Do you still come to a place like this and just take a deep breath and be a little bit in awe of all of this?
I never get tired of being in places like this. It's my medicine. I've been to the park 100 times in the last 40 years, and it gets better, actually, each time that I come here.
Over the last 40 years, his llama's packed with camera gear. He has hiked or climbed or crawled, looking for the next perfect shot. Capturing nature's majesty. Or man's footprint, a fence made of aspen trees. A ranch nestled deep in a valley.
When I'm alone, I think I can experience to a deeper degree the sensuousness of nature. Not just these views, but again, the sounds and the smells, the taste, the touch of these grasses.
Aspiring photographers.
It's just a treat to be able to spend an afternoon with John Fielder. He's Colorado's photographer.
Flock to his workshops.
Because John Fielder's work is amazing, it's inspirational, and it can speak to anyone in any corner of the United States or the world.
Or come to his gallery, where the lesson is that you cannot hurry the pursuit of beauty.
We call it the North Fork of the Gunnison Country.
Mm-hmm. And it's stunning.
This took me about a dozen trips to get this photo, so every year I would go to this location, look at the quality of the aspen trees. It was never right. And finally, after 12 visits, I finally got it at its perfect moment.
So this is a 12 years in the making picture.
Yeah.
But one of his most famous projects was actually a century in the making. Fielder found a kindred soul, photographer William H. Jackson. With his 350 pounds of gear, he was hired by the federal government to photograph his way across the state in the 1870s. Jackson shot 10,000 pictures of Colorado, many archived at Denver's History Colorado Center. Fielder chose 300 and went hunting for the same spots. Some were easy, like Aspen in its early prospector heyday, and now actually less populated a century later. Or railroad tracks, now back to nature.
Just like this.
This is the sweet spot that you finally found.
Exactly.
But sometimes he needed patience, strong legs, and a precise sense of geography to find the more remote areas. It created a book that became a bestseller. So just tell me, how did you find this place? What were your landmarks?
Well, first clue was Big Thompson River in the foreground. Second clue was Mount Ypsilon, that mountain right there in the background, slightly disguised by that ponderosa pine here. So yeah, and then just moving around until I got things to line up.
But the decades have changed Fielder. He still finds calm here, but now apprehension.
Well, nature is challenged more than ever these days. We've got a warming planet. We soon will have 9 billion people on the planet visiting places like this. We need to protect it.
That's what drove President Lyndon Johnson to sign the Wilderness Act 50 years ago, protecting America's outdoors. To celebrate that anniversary, Fielder hit the road for a year, showing his pictures, selling his books, working up to this night, matching John the photographer with that other Colorado John, John Denver. His music played by the John Adams Band.
Rocky Mountain High, Colorado.
It filled a downtown Denver concert hall, the wonder of nature, with a warning.
Nature is being lost very quickly because of climate change, and I want to be a part of the community of people that truly care about 4 billion years of the evolution of life on Earth. And one of the best ways to share with people how special this is and why it needs to be protected forever is through photography.
We leave you
this Sunday morning in the cool heights of the Canadian Rockies, near Alberta.
And now, another chapter in the story of these United States. This is Connor Knighton. It was negative 34 degrees when I visited Yellowstone National Park, but a smile would have been frozen on my face no matter what. America's first national park was my last stop on my 2016 quest to visit every national park, from Acadia to Zion. Ulysses S. Grant never visited Yellowstone, but as president, he signed the Yellowstone National Park Protection Act into law in 1872. None of the members of Congress who voted to preserve the land had ever seen it in person either. What they had seen were incredible photographs and paintings from expeditions to present-day Wyoming. Explorers shared sketches and stories, informing officials of a wonderland already well known to Native American tribes of the area. A place unlike anywhere else in the world. In any season, Yellowstone is magical, home to dramatic canyons and pristine lakes, geysers and hot springs. The park is also a safe haven for species including what wildlife watchers have deemed Yellowstone's Big Five: elk, moose, grizzly bears, wolves, and bison. But Yellowstone's legacy isn't about what it contains, it's about what it represents. Set aside for the benefit and enjoyment of the people, Yellowstone may have been our first national park, but its preservation kicked off what became a complex network of nationally protected places, a concept replicated to great success all around the world. In the years since my park hopping quest, I've been fortunate enough to visit a number of national parks in other nations. But wherever I roam, I've found there's no place quite like home.
Ever since I was a little kid, I always wanted to go out and find treasure.
It is so much more than just a stroll in the Montana woods for Dale Neitzel.
I read all those pirate magazines and comic books, and now I'm getting an opportunity to go out and look for one for real.
Like thousands of others in the Rocky Mountains this summer, he's here on a hunt for this treasure chest, fit for a pirate, filled with gold, precious metals, and ancient artifacts. Its exact dollar value is not known. Some say $1 million, some say millions. How long have you been looking?
I've been looking now for about 5 years.
Aren't you getting a little discouraged at this point?
No, there's nothing to get discouraged about.
But this isn't some long-lost treasure. This is hidden treasure, placed by an eccentric millionaire 5 years ago. It's there for the taking if you can figure out the clues.
Well, I believe that his secret place is a place where there is some kind of running water.
On this day, the clues have taken him here to this lake near Yellowstone National Park and to this rock. And here we are. And maybe Dale is just steps away from life-changing wealth. Or
No, I don't think this is it.
maybe not. Dale had a long career as a professional treasure hunter, salvaging sunken ships. But this is his toughest quest yet. This trip was his 64th attempt. There's no guarantee it's going to be found even in our lifetime.
That's right, that's right. But that doesn't stop me from looking for it, because it's fun to look for it. And there's always the chance. There's always the chance.
Which no one knows better than the man who hid it, 84-year-old Forrest Fenn, who made a career out of collecting treasures of his own.
Well, Mr. Peterson, here's Sitting Bull's pipe.
Wow, feel that. That's right, the pipe from the Indian chief who bested George Custer and his men at Little Bighorn. Fenn grew up in Texas and as a youth explored the American West. He learned a lot about life's value as a fighter pilot in Vietnam, where he was shot down twice. He eventually moved to Santa Fe and made his millions as a successful art and antique dealer. The idea of a treasure hunt started after he survived a bout with cancer.
I said, I've had so much fun collecting all of these things. Why not let somebody else have the same opportunity that I've had?
He drove out across the Rockies and left the chest.
And when I walked back to my car, I talked to myself out loud. There was nobody around any place. And I said, Forrest Fenn, did you really do that? And I started laughing. As I have gone alone in there, and with my treasures bold.
Fenn then wrote a poem with 9 clues, placing the treasure somewhere in the Rockies in one of 4 states: Montana, Wyoming, Colorado, or New Mexico.
From there it's no place for the meek. The end is ever drawing nigh. There'll be no paddle up your creek, just heavy loads and water high.
Now, do you want to add anything to the hints?
The treasure is not hidden in a mine. A lot of these old mines are dangerous. I mean, they have snakes in them, they have black widow spiders.
Well, that's a good hint and a good piece of advice.
Did I give you a hint? Really? You're not being fair to me, Barry.
Well, I don't think that narrows it down a lot, I got to tell you. Lust and loot, it turns out, launched a lot of lookers. What has been the response from people who are trying to find this treasure?
I stopped keeping emails at 65,000.
65,000. Add to that
And it's called the Fenn Treasure Hunt.
the countless more on YouTube
Es geht den Schatz von Forrest Fenn. Ein amerikanischer
with their own plans to find the treasure.
But if you look at the first line, as I have gone alone in there, if you count the number of syllables, Paul, go ahead and count those for us.
But is it really out there? Assure me somehow that this treasure is real. How do I know that?
The only way that I could prove to you that the treasure is hidden is to take you there.
And what are my chances that you are going to do that?
There's an old saying, 2 people can keep a secret if one of them is dead.
Okay.
So if I take you out there, I wouldn't want to be your insurance agent.
To avoid that deadly fate, we opted to just ask someone who knows a lot about secrets, his friend, Valerie Plame. You may remember her, a former CIA agent. Plame's cover was compromised in 2003 by a White House official. Scandal ensued, and Plame and her husband eventually moved to Santa Fe, where she met Fenn. You're an ex-CIA operative. Do you give Forrest credit for keeping his secret for so long? Because he won't tell anybody.
Apparently not even his wife.
Not even his wife.
That is something.
Do you believe him? Do you think that treasure's out there?
Oh, absolutely. I think that this is something that Forrest has done to completely amuse himself.
Another friend, writer Michael McGarity, agrees. He is one of many people we spoke with who say they saw the treasure before Fenn hid it.
Forrest, whether he admits it or not, loves attention. But he denies it.
He has this aw shucks
Yeah,
personality,
he does.
but he's as sharp as can.
Exactly.
So we don't take the aw shucks at face
No.
value.
Oh, no.
His ego is involved. Who he is and what he comes from is involved. His whole life has been one big adventure after another.
Adventures that he loved, and hiding the treasure was a way to pass that love on. In your mind, who would be the best person or family to find this treasure?
A family that is joined together and going out looking for the treasure 4 or 5 or 10 or 50 times. Take a tent and sleeping bags and your fishing pole and go out looking. That was my primary motive.
Amber, come with Daddy.
And that is exactly the motive driving the Dunstan family of city slickers who are slip-sliding through the southern Colorado backwoods.
This is crazy. Amanda, look. This is terrifying.
Last month, they left their home in Orange County, California, on their own search for Fenn's treasure. What is the lure of this treasure hunt for you?
The adventure of it, the fun of it, the riddles, solving puzzles.
Parents Marlene and Mark, along with Amanda and Amber, Audrey and Ashlyn, are far from their comfort zones.
There might be bears, there might be wildlife, we might get lost, so it's super fun. I feel like I really bonded with my older daughters doing it.
If only you could see the expressions on their faces.
Yeah, well, you know, they're teenagers, so. Daddy's like Indiana Jones. Careful, Mark. Oh my God.
The Dunstan family trip ended with photos and memories, but alas, no treasure. As for Forrest Fenn, who launched 1,000 dreams on a hunt yet to end, he has no regrets for what is out there, somewhere, for any of us to find. You would do it again?
I would do it again in an instant. So hear me all and listen good. Your effort will be worth the cold. If you've been brave and in the wood, I give you title to the gold.
We leave you this Sunday morning, far from the storm, in the Canadian Rockies. 4 decades after his death, the art of Ansel Adams remains the standard for nature photography. Connor Knighton visits an exhibit honoring an American master.
In the spring of 1927, photographer Ansel Adams hiked with his friends through the snow at Yosemite National Park in California. The 25-year-old brought along his camera, as he always did, stopping to take a photo he later titled Monolith, the Face of Half Dome. That now iconic image helped launch his career. Adams went on to become one of the most recognizable faces of American nature photography.
Many photographers speak about the fact that you cannot take pictures of the Western landscape today or the national parks without automatically thinking in some way of Ansel Adams. This is where you see those raindrops gathering on the pine needles, the really beautiful kind of mist as it clears.
Sarah McKay is an assistant curator for the DeYoung Museum in San Francisco. Adams was born in San Francisco. His first solo exhibition was held at the DeYoung in 1932.
What Ansel Adams advocated for throughout his career was how photography should be considered a fine art in and of itself.
For a while, was it not? Were people not taking him seriously?
Yeah, I mean, photography, even into like the 50s, 60s, and 70s, photography was always kind of struggling to be considered a fine art medium. Today, we know it to be, but it was not even throughout a lot of the 20th century.
Adams was ahead of his time. In the DeYoung's new exhibition, Ansel Adams in Our Time, his images are displayed alongside the works of some of the contemporary photographers he influenced. Photographers like Abelardo Morel, who uses a camera obscuratent to capture 2 views simultaneously.
This photograph is actually of the ground itself with the image projected onto it.
Oh, so this line I'm seeing is
This is
concrete?
the cement concrete, yes. And so what's so funny about this picture is Ansel Adams took Clearing Winter Storm from a parking lot.
Clearing Winter Storm is typical of Adams' work. Nature is shown as a pristine wilderness. Contemporary photographers, on the other hand, are more likely to include evidence of a human presence, playing up that contrast. Adams is best known for the contrasts he created in the darkroom. When correspondent Ed Bradley visited him at home in Carmel, California for Sunday Morning in 1979, Adams gave a glimpse into his painstaking printmaking process.
See how this is burned out?
So you discard
Compared to
that?
that, so I just discard that.
What do you do with your rejects?
They are destroyed. Everybody's asking me, oh, don't throw it away. Even if it isn't good, I like it, but I can't have bad prints out.
You're a perfectionist now?
Well, you have to be, yes.
Come on in here, Connor.
Oh, so this is the darkroom.
This is the darkroom.
Ansel's son, Michael Adams, used to accompany his father on his photographic expeditions. Today, he lives in that same Carmel home, where he's kept the darkroom intact.
This happens to be a moonrise.
Oh, that's moonrise. Yeah, I recognize that even in reverse, yeah. It's a cliche phrase, but to say that, like, this is where the magic happens. For him, it was.
It did. This was where the magic happened, yeah.
Ansel Adams was a classically trained pianist. He often referred to the photographic negative as the score and the print as the performance. Over his career, he performed his photos in several different ways, constantly tweaking exposures in the darkroom.
I would have to say almost all of the ones that are well known, there's a fair amount of manipulation in the darkroom to bring up what he wanted you to see. And he would say, this is not what you're going to see when you look at this, but it's what I want you to see.
But as far as what he wanted you to see, Adams was reluctant to get specific. Here's what he told Sunday Morning 3 years before his death.
People say to me, well, what did you mean when you did that picture? What did you have in mind? I said, it's in the picture. No, I mean, I want you to tell me, what were you thinking about? I said, if it didn't in the photograph, then I failed.
With crowds still coming out in droves to see his photographs decades later, and with contemporary artists still riffing on his compositions, it's clear Adams succeeded in capturing something timeless.
His ability to spot those images that were going to be majestic and iconic and really just gorgeous is something that I think differentiates him from so many.
Every year at this time in Rocky Mountain National Park, the elk descend from the high country to these meadows to mate. That's all very normal. What seems a bit abnormal is that hundreds of thousands of us come out to watch.
Hi there, welcome to Rocky.
Hi.
We got a little brochure here on the elk. This is their rutting season. Oh my God. Can't believe that.
Look at him. God, he's gorgeous.
Elk mating is a spectator sport, a bigger draw on these fall weekends in Colorado than Denver Broncos football games. You guys tailgate for football and stuff like that as well, or no?
No.
Nope, just for elk.
Yep.
What draws all these people?
The elk. The passion play that's going on.
Really?
This is a passion play. The hormones are flowing.
Sounds sexy.
It sort of is. Depends what you're watching out there, but it can be. I kind of wonder what they think about us sometimes watching them.
This thundering herd of elkaholics come from throughout the nation and the world.
I saw the elk last night, a very big one too.
That seems to be the type of thing that turns people on these days.
I like to watch the bulls chasing the cows around. That's what I like to watch.
What is that?
Young
Those are elk. They're not deer, they're elk.
and old alike.
You can't see the moose.
But we're seeing elk.
Undeterred by rain or dark of night.
You can still hear him out there bugling.
I think people are trying to figure out how the elk get a date here in Rocky Mountain National Park.
Ranger Susan Langdon even teaches sex education classes.
Then comes August, and suddenly you're real interested in the females. So you're going to come down, you're going to herd up a group of females, we call that a harem, and you're going to try and keep them together so that you can hopefully mate with them.
If watching elk mate seems a bit voyeuristic, well, the fans claim it's not the act they come to see, it's the whole ritual. These meadows are like singles bars, a meat market, pure physical attraction. A good personality gets you nowhere. The cows choose the big, strong bulls who bugle the loudest and have the biggest racks, the biggest antlers. Size matters,
Size
right?
matters.
All right.
You don't see it any better than that kind of a rack.
With a rack like that, you didn't need stuff like this. Eager young bulls with short horns don't stand a chance. This poor guy can't even get his picture taken. The big bulls gather harems of dozens of cows, but then have to spend weeks trying to keep them from running off with competing bulls. They spend night and day corralling their cows and driving other bulls away.
They literally end up spending 24 hours a day. They don't get much sleep either, but they're not having the opportunity to eat as much. So the bull elk can actually lose quite a bit of weight. They can lose up to about a third of their body weight during the rut.
He's got his harem together. There's about 14, 15 females, and he's keeping them in a nice little huddle. He's keeping his herd in tow of where he's at, and also he's warning off other males that he's in charge.
Spectators do play-by-play of the mating game.
Now he's down, guy's head down.
He's still having problems over here.
Yeah, this one can't keep his herd together. Look at him.
I thought having 20 girls would be fun, but it looks like a lot of trouble. Further trouble is having your love life become dinner theater.
You don't get any better than this, right?
No one said romance would be easy, but in the end, love finds a way.
What an extraordinary landscape, huh? You see all kinds of animals passing through, grizzly bears, big herds of bison, elk, you know. And when you're out alone, you don't want to make any noise, or you want to whisper if you're talking.
To understand this man, Steve Fuller, and his passion for solitude, you have to understand his job.
Snowy weekend.
He's the winter caretaker of Yellowstone National Park, one of just a handful of hardy souls who remain in this wilderness long after the summer tourists have gone.
How do you describe your job here? I usually start off with caretaker, and their immediate response is, "Have you seen The Shining?"
A peek inside Yellowstone's deserted Canyon Lodge, and you can see why.
The expectation was that you were in here for the winter. You got snowed in until you got plowed out.
Just getting to Steve took us 2 hours by snow coach.
This job has never been by the calendar or by the clock. You work with the winter, you work with Mother Nature.
He lives here, in one of the oldest structures in the park, a small cabin on a hill that boasts the only light for miles.
I don't have a television, but I have a vast library.
At night, when Yellowstone's temperatures can dip to 20 below, his books keep him company. As well as his cats.
Cup of tea?
His kitchen is crammed with just enough food to make it through the winter.
What do you think the value of solitude is?
Well,
an opportunity for self-knowledge, reflection.
Most Yellowstone winter keepers last only a few years, tops. But Steve has stuck out this solitary existence for 42 years, ever since the winter of 1973.
I was the only applicant, which is the only reason I got hired.
No one else even applied?
No one applied. I was paid $13.25 a day.
Even that didn't discourage you.
No.
Did
it was enough.
He raised a family here, homeschooling his 2 daughters and teaching them the ways of nature. They've gone on to live their own lives, as did his wife. But Steve says he fit best staying put.
It seems like it's the kind of job that would suit a hermit pretty well, or an eccentric pretty well. How would you describe yourself?
Never thought of myself as a hermit. I enjoy solitary time, but I very much enjoy people too.
Do you get lonely?
Never.
Never do?
Never have. Never had cabin fever. Never been bored.
There is a lot to keep him busy, and preparation starts early. While parts of the park remain open, many of the facilities have to be tucked in for the park's long winter's nap, which starts the first Monday in November.
Okay, and road closed signs?
Yep, we did that.
Okay, that's taken care of.
On the way up when we're doing this. So.
It's a flurry of activity that seems to send a message to the other residents of the park as well.
Animals move in as people move out.
Do they?
And retake the real estate. Yeah, they say we got some snow coming, so we want to get these water valves staked while we can still find them.
With just a few days left before Steve is left alone, we watched his crew complete a to-do list a mile long.
On to the next project.
At an elevation of more than 7,000 feet, the transition can be fast up here. Going from this...
It'll look like a different planet.
Really?
Different world, for sure.
To this in a matter of days.
So you told me when we were here in October that it would be a totally different world, and it's a totally different world.
It is indeed.
The weight of winter, threatens to crush the lodge and the other buildings in Steve's keep.
That is your problem.
It's one of my 100 problems here. I've got about 100 buildings.
I mean, that's tons of snow up there, right?
It is, but I have an ally, gravity.
He's worked out a system, not so much shoveling as sawing the buildings free of their burden. He makes it look easy. But it's a workout, even for someone half of Steve's 70-something weather-worn years.
How old are you now?
Old as the hills. How's that?
And you're still able to do this?
Well, I've always said, you know, you'll live forever if it doesn't kill you doing this work.
But it's not all work. Steve has never let a winter slip by without capturing it with his camera.
You know, I've seen many wonderful things here. Occasionally get a picture of them. But a lot of the great pictures are in the head, you know, that you couldn't quite pull it off with a camera. All of this steam and moisture becomes super cooled. So anytime they touch something, they flash freeze. Frost crystals, ice crystals, are light catchers. They're like jewels.
Some of the jewels he's photographed have even been featured in National Geographic. But seeing is only the half of it. Yellowstone has taught Steve to listen, too.
There's all kinds of interesting sounds out here. This is an obvious one, a roar. Sometimes, you know, you'll think you hear voices, and actually it's a spring bubbling and talking, you know.
The sound of snowplows, however, will soon be heard in the park, usually around the end of this month, actually, making way for the estimated 3 million tourists who will flock here over the summer. What Steve calls
the coming and going of the great primate migration.
Great primate migration.
You know, it's just part of living in Yellowstone, you know. I've always thought that, you know, winter keepers kind of require a lot of solitude, a lot of empty space, you know, a lot of quiet, and of course all of that is evaporating.
quicker and more reliable transportation in and out of the park these days has made the winter keeper job not only less solitary, but a little less relevant, too.
Do you think you might be one of the last ones?
I suspect so.
Do you ever think about retiring?
Think of it. They say a lot of people die when they retire, you know?
Being Yellowstone's winter keeper isn't a job for Steve Fuller. It's a way of life. Solitary, simple, and spectacular.
If you're on the slopes, there's no more frightening cry than the call avalanche. And as Serena Altschul tells us, it's been heard a lot this winter, with sometimes deadly results.
Mountain mornings above Ketchum, Idaho often begin with cannon fire. The enemy? Avalanches. The Sun Valley Ski Patrol uses explosives to test the snowpack on the mountainside. It's one way Scooter Gardner, the head of snow safety for the resort, keeps his guests safe.
Our ultimate goal is to give the skiing customer as much skiable terrain as possible that is as safe as possible.
To the blissfully unaware, it might seem like overkill.
This is all avalanche terrain to the left. Exactly, so it's a very fine line.
But beyond the boundaries of America's ski resorts, the threat from avalanches is a very real part of mountain life. These snowmobilers got caught in an avalanche last month in Utah.
I heard Hunter yelling, and here he is. You okay, bud?
All the snow is a horizontal representation of the season's weather.
To really understand the danger of snowpack on a steep slope, you have to dig a little deeper.
The more readily this slides off, that's going to show poor bonding between those layers.
Since the start of the pandemic, enrollment in avalanche classes like this one by Sun Valley Guides has more than doubled, with people looking to safely get away into America's wild and rugged backcountry. Mountain guide Chris Marshall walks students through the basics of search and rescue, terrain management, and critically, how to read layers of snow like a geologist reads sediment.
When you've got snow that looks like sugar, and especially when you can see the individual crystals with your naked eye, these are facets.
Snow scientists say climate change has heightened avalanche risk. Throughout much of the West, there was heavy fall snow, followed by drought. That formed a weak layer, which was then buried under several feet of snow, prime conditions for the most dangerous type of avalanche.
What we call slab avalanches, a cohesive plate of snow like a magazine sliding off of an inclined table.
Bruce Tremper was the head of the Utah Avalanche Center for some 30 years before retiring in 2015.
93% of the time, that avalanche is triggered by the victim or somebody in the victim's party. It means we have a choice. We can avoid avalanches if we want to by not triggering avalanches.
In 1977, as a young member of the ski patrol at Bridger Bowl in Montana, he was warned to stay off of a slope that was a notorious avalanche path. Not that he listened.
And the first thing that happens, it feels like somebody pulls out the rug from underneath me, and I flop down on the snow, and it just pulled me downhill.
Tremper credits managing to grab a tree with saving his life.
And I just felt like I was underneath this huge waterfall getting pounded to death. Suddenly I was just tumbling down the slope, going head over heels and all over the place. Hat, mittens gone, skis gone. I mean, snow was going everywhere, down my underwear, under my eyelids. And when it came to a stop, I was buried like up to my chest.
When snow is moving down a slope, it often feels like water, but when it comes to rest, it tends to set like concrete. Had Tremper been fully buried, he might have had only about 15 minutes to live.
One of the really important misconceptions is that you can dig yourself out if you get buried. And, just because of how the avalanche flows, when you get buried, the snow compacts. It's really, really hard.
Ethan Green is the director of the Colorado Avalanche Information Center.
It certainly is going to be one of the worst years in a long time. I'm hoping it's not going to be the worst year.
In fact, the week of January 30th was the worst week for avalanche fatalities in the U.S. since 1910, with 15 dead, and the season is far from over.
It's a pretty amazing natural hazard in that you have a person that goes across a snow slope and can release maybe thousands of tons of debris that goes rolling down the hill. One of the accidents we had this last week, the avalanche itself, the break in the snow, was over 3,000 feet wide. And that's triggered by a person.
That sort of risk-taking can now have legal consequences. In Colorado, 2 snowboarders are facing reckless endangerment charges for causing an avalanche above I-70.
Buried the road.
Yeah. If there's a high avalanche risk, do you generally shut down public lands?
Typically, we don't do that. Part of our culture in the United States, and certainly the Western United States, has a high degree of value on freedom and personal responsibility. So these are our public lands. They're there for everybody to enjoy. And that's a wonderful thing for all of us to have access to. And with that freedom to use those lands comes the responsibility to take care of ourselves and then also take care of the other people in our communities.
So viewer, beware. If you're pushing the boundaries, you're on your own.
What are the best ways to survive an avalanche?
It's kind of like asking, what do I do if I get in a car wreck? And the answer is there's not much you can do, because these things are really, really dangerous. And by the time you've triggered that avalanche, you've already made all the mistakes.
The artists who came with the early expeditions at the turn of the century, 1820, the earliest artist into the Rocky Mountains, brought back the first visual image of what this great chain of mountains was, what this barrier which separated the west coast from the east coast, what it looked like. And they came away with charming examples of how they visually perceived the Rockies. It's something that the American public should be proud of, as opposed to fearsome.
It occurs to me that you had to be a pretty intrepid artist to make this particular trip.
All the way through until the Transcontinental Railroad came in the late 1860s, it was a tough go. And that's why most of the artists signed up with various expeditions, either government or scientific expeditions, and came along with that sort of a support group. It was dangerous. It was a difficult physical trek, especially when they were with explorers as driven as John Fremont, who led his troop through the Central Rockies in the late 1840s in the middle of winter. He decided, well, if I'm going to find a path for the Transcontinental Railroad from east to west, the trains are going to have to go through in the winter as well as in the summer, so we'll just go up there and see if we can get through. And he just about killed a whole bunch.
Wow, things just got complicated.
Yes, whenever a federal project is involved. In the early 1860s, Congress commissioned Emanuel Leutze to complete a commission for the House of Representatives titled "Westward the Course of Empire Takes Its Way." And it was to celebrate the conquest of the Rockies by your great-grandparents and mine. And so this is one of the two studies known of the finished mural. And on it, it shows the pioneers cresting the Rockies here, and it shows James Bridger, the great mountain man, on one side, and President Jefferson on the other side, who purchased Louisiana Territory. And down below on the artist's frame is the Golden Gate in California, which would be the end of the other side of our continent.
Oh, if there is such a thing as an Imperial American school, I guess this represents it, huh?
Yes, this was the image that Americans saw of themselves as the conquerors of that great range, the Rockies, and the promise of their new life and the promise of the union of this country. Albert Bierstadt, who came to the West in 1859 and later all through the 60s and 70s, was really interested in the dramatic potential of the Rocky Mountains. It was not the sensitive light and the quiet Indian element, but it was the pure theater potential of this grand Cordillera that he celebrated. And you can see it here in this painting of Mount Rosalie, Storm in the Rocky Mountains, which was completed in the mid-1860s.
It's the difference between Chopin and Wagner.
It's very Wagnerian. The celebration is really entirely toward nature.
We leave you this Sunday morning in a midwinter snowscape near Leadville, Colorado.
If you have a habit of losing your keys, you might want to stay out of this room. Set them down here, and you may never find them again. These keys, an estimated 30,000 of them, aren't misplaced. Each one has been brought to this place, a hotel high in the Rocky Mountains, on purpose. Small metal donations to the largest public key collection in the world.
We tell people, you know, your first visit to the key room is free, but after that, you need to bring us a key.
Lois Smith is the owner of the Baldpate Inn, a rustic mountain lodge that sits perched above Estes Park, Colorado. Tourists come to this region to enjoy the breathtaking scenery, but those who stay a night at the Baldpate frequently leave a souvenir behind, a key. The hotel has keys of every shape, from every state, weighing down the rafters.
We've always sagged since I've been here, and you know, by the time I'm 100, I'll probably sag too.
The Baldpate just celebrated its 100th anniversary. It's named after a fictional hotel that's even older.
Do take care of it. It's the only key to Baldpate Inn. The only one.
7 Keys to Baldpate is a story about a writer who attempts to produce a novel in 24 hours. He holes up alone at the Baldpate, a mountain lodge that's closed for the winter. But all night long, the door keeps opening and opening and opening.
Shall I let him in? Wait. He's got a key.
Yes, probably the only one in existence. It turns out there are actually 7 keys to Baldpate. Earl Derbigger's 1913 comedic mystery novel inspired 7 film adaptations, a smash Broadway show, and inspired the original owners of this mountain hotel that closes in the winter to borrow the catchy name and the theme.
Legend has it that they gave a key to each guest that came. So each guest had the only key to Baldpate.
Of course, handing out souvenir keys got pretty expensive pretty quickly. So instead, guests were encouraged to leave a key behind. And did they ever?
These are some of our more significant keys. Key to Buckingham Palace, Westminster Abbey, my submarine key there.
A submarine has a key?
A submarine has a key. Can you imagine losing the key when you're in the submarine?
There's the key to Mozart's wine cellar, to Jack Benny's dressing room. There's a key to the U.S. Capitol. There are strange old keys, like this scorpion contraption. There are more modern computer encryption keys. Some are clearly decorative. Some are surprisingly functional.
This is the employee bathroom key to the American Museum of Natural History. This could come in handy. Yeah. You don't know, those public bathrooms are terrible. I'm taking this.
No stealing the keys.
Okay, all right, it's back.
There's, of course, every version of key pun you can think of. Monkey, donkey, porky, pig. But most of the keys in the collection aren't particularly rare. They're regular old keys, significant only to the people who left them behind.
This is a baby's first set of keys from Oklahoma. This is a family's first house key in Minnesota.
In the original story, the writer was told there was only 1 key to Baldpate. Today, this hotel has tens of thousands of them, and every single one has a story that unlocks a memory.
We leave you this Easter Sunday morning in the Colorado Rockies, where spring is in bloom.
Lee Cowan is taking us to a hotel high in the mountains of Colorado where a notable guest is now in residence.
Those majestic elk aren't the only unusual guests to wind up at the historic Stanley Hotel in Estes Park, Colorado. In its nearly 115 years, it's hosted everyone from Theodore Roosevelt to the Titanic's unsinkable Molly Brown, and more recently, author Stephen King. If these long, narrow hallways look creepily familiar, it may be because the Stanley is where King was inspired to write The Shining.
Hello, Danny.
A hotel haunting that director Stanley Kubrick turned into a horror classic.
Here's Johnny!
But the Stanley was also haunted by something else. Decades of financial woes. It was in bankruptcy when hotel entrepreneur John Cullen found himself the latest in a long line of supposedly cursed proprietors to invest in this creepy place.
I don't know if I'd need to celebrate or cry, but here's Johnny.
He knew he had to capitalize on the hotel's ghoulish reputation.
You've got a big surprise coming to you.
So he fixed up Stephen King's actual room. You can now stay in it. And he built a hedge maze right out front. Just like the one where Jack Nicholson finally met his frozen end. And in keeping with that frozen theme, Cullen got another idea. In 2022, he asked the mayor of Estes Park for permission to allow one very special guest to check in, a man who'd been frozen himself for 30-plus years.
And she goes, Cullen, you know, I've seen a lot of weird out of you in the last 25 years, but this reaches a new level of weird.
His name was Brado Morstol. He died in Norway in 1989, but his remains ended up about an hour away from the Stanley, here in Netherland, Colorado.
Here I am.
Unceremoniously laid to rest in that tough shed. Frozen stiff.
So is that the casket?
That is the casket.
Every 2 weeks since the early 90s, people like Brad Wickham have been rotating in and out, hauling more than 1,000 pounds of dry ice up this mountain.
I can't believe you do this all by yourself.
All to keep Grandpa tucked in for his eternal winter's nap.
From what I understand, he was a very kind gentleman, and you could just tell that he was the glue of the whole family.
And still is, in a way, I guess.
Yeah.
It's a practice called cryonics. Brado's grandson, Trygve Baug, lived in this house, and he believed that by keeping his grandfather frozen in the backyard, doctors of the future might one day be able to clone or even revive him.
At the worst case, this is essentially a form of burial, but it's also for research.
James Airwood is co-CEO and president of the nonprofit Alcor Life Extension Foundation in Scottsdale, Arizona, where hundreds of patients, as they call them, are patiently waiting, frozen at minus 320 degrees, far colder than a box filled with dry ice in a tough shed.
When you heard the story, were you like, this is just wild, right?
I just thought it was weird.
It is bizarre.
Grandpa's grandson was forced to move back to Norway. He was deported for overstaying his visa, and he had to leave Grandpa behind.
Oh, boy.
But Grandpa hasn't exactly been alone either.
Here's to you, Brito.
Our own Bill Geist went to pay his respects back in 2003.
All right, here we go.
He learned Grandpa wasn't forgotten. He was actually being celebrated with an annual Frozen Dead Guy festival.
Why, if it weren't so creepy, it'd be almost heartwarming.
It's almost like a frozen Burning Man, if that actually can be in one sentence.
It eventually became so popular, Netherland couldn't handle the crowds anymore. But its gallows humor fit the Stanley perfectly. So Cullen moved it here.
A little humor, a little fun, little beer, a little bit of attitude, but all in good spirit.
But what's a Frozen Dead Guy festival without the Frozen Dead Guy? Cullen needed the festival's namesake, and let's face it, Grandpa needed an upgrade. So, this past August,
1, 2, up.
With his grandson's permission,
Into the body back.
Grandpa Brado was moved by a team from the Alcor Life Extension Foundation. He was driven to the Stanley's old ice house, removed from his aluminum casket, put in a sleeping bag, and then submerged head first in liquid nitrogen.
What does he look like? Damn good. Yeah? He looked better than embalmed people.
He's now the centerpiece of a small exhibit on the science of cryonics here at the Stanley. And he gets visitors every day.
Hi, John.
As for John Cullen, well, he's now sold the Stanley, but he's proud of its ghostly legacy. After all, he linked a fictional frozen dead guy to a real one. And he managed to find the perfect hotel guest. One who never complains and will never check out.
Ice, cooler, movie, frozen dead guy. Come on!
Every Christmas time on this broadcast, we report on our gifts to us, the places we as a people have decided to give ourselves in the form of national parks and wildlife refuges and the like, the places which belong to all of us now and to our children and their children forever. This Christmas, we go back to the very first of our gifts to us, to the birthplace of a great American idea. It's known as Yellowstone. This is how it was at Christmas since before there was a Christmas. In 1872, Yellowstone became the first national park anywhere in the world. The Congress created it and stated in law that Yellowstone is dedicated and set apart as a public park or pleasuring ground for the benefit and enjoyment of the people. From that notion, we have conceived the whole sprawling system of parks, monuments, wildlife refuges, and wilderness areas, and we have exported that good idea around the world. Yellowstone, we thought, would never change. This year, Yellowstone changed. It was invaded by drought and fire and misconception. For many years, it's been the policy of the National Park Service to manage forest fires this way. Fires started from natural causes, usually lightning, were allowed to burn themselves out unless they threatened human life or property. Fires caused by human beings were suppressed as quickly as possible. In the famous fires of 1988, the policy didn't work well because the terrible drought in a very hot, very dry, very windy summer and early fall defeated the most heroic firefighting efforts for weeks. In the ashes, there is controversy. Some people thought we'd let the great gift of Yellowstone be lost.
I think the human-animal responds to fire in a way just like any other animal. It's terrifying.
Thomas McNamee is an author and environmentalist.
Smoke was thick. The walls of flame were absolutely terrifying. And people had, I think, an understandable sense that the forest was being destroyed, that Yellowstone was being destroyed. It is violent, it's true, but that is the way renewal works here.
Yellowstone National Park is being devastated this morning by the worst fires in its history.
The North Fork blaze continues to burn not far from Old Faith.
And it's now within 1 mile of the Canyon Junction campgrounds.
The catastrophic aspects of the fires of 1988 in Yellowstone were primarily threats to life and property and the disruption that it caused and the hardships to the businesses in the community and to visitors.
Bob Barbie has been the superintendent of Yellowstone Park since 1983.
Biologically, as far as the park is concerned, we don't consider it a catastrophe. This area was born of cataclysm, so to speak. That's what Yellowstone is all about. These forests have burned, we know, over time since the Ice Age ended here about 11 to 12,000 years ago.
And the federal government is taking a lot of heat for this let it burn policy.
Let nature take its course has damn near destroyed nature in the greater Yellowstone area.
Only God can make a tree, and all the congressmen and the goddamn park officials can't build one little twig. Yeah. But they can sure let them go.
The basic misunderstanding from which all the controversy derived, I think, is a sense that fire is equal to destruction, that these fires were harmful. And I would submit that they are not harmful, far from it. It's true that people do look at this individually as their park, and people were afraid that their park was not going to be there anymore. And people sensed that the animals, for example, were being killed in droves, and that they panicked and stampeded. In fact, it was mostly people who panicked and stampeded.
More than a dozen stubborn wildfires are sweeping through vast stands of timber in many sections of the park.
The flames have already burned more than 400,000 acres.
There is no doubt that Yellowstone has suffered enormous damage. It will not be able to regenerate in our lifetimes.
I think the way the news media covered the fires gave a false impression to the American public.
John Varley is chief of research at Yellowstone.
Predominant perception out there in the public today is that half of Yellowstone has been destroyed, and that's so far from the truth. Oh, perhaps a quarter to a third of Yellowstone was affected one way or another, but in very different ways.
Leaving sections of Yellowstone Park looking like ground zero. It'll take hundreds of years for Mother Nature to regenerate areas that are burned and devastated like this one.
There was a tremendous amount of media coverage of the fires of Yellowstone in 1988. And I have to say, frankly, I think there was some distortion. It made it appear that everything was a disaster, that the whole place was all burned up. Well, that's ridiculous. That's folly. Wildfire doesn't operate that way. There's a great mosaic here of places that were burned and places that are unburned, and the diversity that results, the rebirthing of the forest, of an old forest that was here. That's a fascinating story.
When you look at these forests, these burned forests, people forget that the trees have a maximum life, just like I do, and they're storing a lot of the building blocks of life, the calcium and potassium and all of those things that we know that our bodies are made up of are stored in the trunks and the branches and the needles of those trees. Now, when those trees die, then they will go through a decomposition, and all of those building blocks of life will decompose and therefore be available for new life.
Most of the forests in the park are of very tall, very old lodgepole pines. For longer than there has been a United States, for nearly 300 years, many of these trees have grown and shed their dead needles and branches onto the forest floor. A great accumulation of that tinder just waited for fires to come. When they did, during the worst drought in the 115-year history of the park, the woods blazed and the old dry trees died. Those were natural deaths.
You can decompose in this kind of country in two ways. You can rot, and if this tree, this dead tree behind us fell and rotted on the ground, it would probably take 100 years for that to rot back into the chemical elements that are useful to new life, the nutrients. But there's a more rapid way of decomposition, and that's by fire. When a fire goes through and consumes these trees and creates ash, then that's instantaneous decomposition. It won't take 100 years to nourish the next generation of life that we can expect to see here next spring.
and the new forests are ready to begin growing. Lodgepole pines reproduce by bearing seeds held firmly within the cones. In the heat of a forest fire, the rosin of the cones melts, and the seeds are loosed and scattered. In a few months, scrawny new pines will be seen here. Tiny plants with half a dozen or so needles that slowly but inevitably will become mature trees, 8 stories tall, in a new forest. The fires of the forest debris in the dry meadows heated the earth, and millions of seeds and roots dormant for decades responded to the new warmth and began growing last summer.
All of the roots and the tubers and bulbs and those kinds of things were not affected at all by the fire. In other words, what swept through here just consumed that which was above ground. Below the ground is we have a living organism that's it's going to be with us next year in a very big way, and then for about the next 2 decades, for the next 20 years, then we're going to see approximately a 30-fold increase in the plant diversity here.
Now insulated by the precious snow, the black ash, still slightly warm and richly fertile, is sending forth new green shoots from the very places where burned plants also grow. The long winter will be a time of bumper production.
Well, I think this is an interesting spot. The fire obviously came through here, but it came through very lightly. It burned some of the, in a very light way, some of that straw, some of the dead grass. But look at there. There's the new blade of grass coming up already.
This tough little spear of green is more than a symbol. Very close inspection reveals that the grass has already been nibbled by an elk or a bison. This is the future.
What happens post-fire is not only do you get a richer abundance of plant life, but it's higher in nutrition for wildlife, and so there'll be a more interesting mixture of wildlife species. There will be more kinds of wildlife.
The interesting kinds include huge golden eagles, and coyotes, grebes, and the spectacularly prolific herds of elk.
Short term, we're going to see some loss of animals. I think if we have a deep snow winter, as everybody hopes, we're going to see a crash in the elk population. That's the way elk populations behave. They tend to mount up until they've eaten up all their food, and then heavy snow comes, and what food remains isn't accessible to them, and they die by the thousands. And I'm afraid people are going to see that and blame that on the fires. And they are going to die, and it is partly due to the drought, and the fire is also due to the drought, but the death of the elk is not due to the fire.
The inherent assets for which Yellowstone was established in 1872, the wildlife, the geyser basins primarily, the rivers, the lakes, the whole complex of resources that are here are all here, essentially unmodified.
You know, I think the national parks, Yellowstone Park perhaps in particular, have only 2 marketable products, and one of those is inspiration and the other is education. And I think we certainly didn't do any damage to the inspirational aspect to this park. I think that visitors who come here next year will find it very interesting to see. And it will also be educational, the other side of that. We, the National Park Service, certainly learned a lot from from what happened in these fires. But we'll continue learning. We'll continue learning about nature and these great wildlands.
The most famous geyser in the world is called Old Faithful because it erupts regularly, almost hourly. But even Old Faithful varies its schedule from year to year. Everything in nature changes a little in time. Yellowstone, our greatest gift to ourselves, changed in a single season. That is over now. A new season has come.
We leave you this morning at Glacier National Park in Montana by the rushing waters of the Avalanche Gorge.